Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast. And some of you probably thought about starting your very own sports podcast. Well, let me help you out. I want to tell you a little bit about Anchor. Now, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's an easy way to make a podcast, and it's free. You don't have to worry about paying a bunch of money each month. There are creation tools to allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so you don't have to worry about that. So it can be heard on apps like Spotify and Apple Podcasts and many, many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. So go to anchorfm.com and start your very own podcast today. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place.
One more time.
Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast. And on the State of the Saints podcast, once again, we have from the New Orleans Advocate and NOLA.com, we got Jeff Nowak. What's going on, Jeff?
In the dream. Thanks for having me on again. I'm glad.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. I appreciate it, Jeff. Thank you so much for being a part of the State of the Saints podcast again. Ready to talk New Orleans Saints, and hopefully you can talk some of these members of the Who Dat Nation off the ledge right now.
That's what I'm here for. That's my Twitter persona these days, is basically equal parts angry debating and equal parts pump the brakes. That's the recipe that I've gone with, because man, it's been a rough couple weeks.
Yeah,
in Louisiana football in general, like that Saturday Sunday run of LSU getting blown off the field, and then the Saints kind of laying an egg on defense. That was quite something.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's the thing, Jeff. Anytime like the Saints lose a game, everybody starts to panic. They lose 2 games, and now everybody like ready to get on that ledge and ready to jump off. But hopefully, some of the things that you actually seen and also some of the things that you wrote in your article can kind of put things into perspective for the Who Dat Nation. And we're going to be talking about Drew Brees. We're going to be talking about Drew Brees and this whole arm strength debate everybody has going. I mean, it has been taking up a lot of steam here, picking up a lot of steam on ESPN, Fox Sports. Everybody's talking about Drew Brees' arm strength, the whole air distance. I think he's 4.3 yards. Air distance right now, last among qualified quarterbacks. But Jeff, what have you saw from Drew Brees? Do you feel like Drew Brees' arm strength has diminished? And do you think this is worth all of the conversation and debate that's going on right now?
Well, the thing with Drew Brees, it's not just about, has his arm strength diminished? Of course it has. He's 41 years old. Right. He was never a bomber coming out of Purdue. Like this is a situation where you're not looking at, is he the same passer that he was in, the early 2000s? Right. You're talking about, is he the same passer that he was in 2018? When he also was last in the league in air yards, or either 2017 or 2018, he was also last in the league in air yards. He just had I think it was twice as high as it is now. That's the main difference. But he also wasn't playing without his number one wide receiver in 2017. And you want to look from week 1 to week 3 and see improvement. And I think you have seen improvement from Drew Brees in all the areas that are inside of throwing deep. Right. Week 1, he targeted he threw 2 passes, 20 plus yards downfield. One was a long play to Jared Cook,
right?
And official passes, I should say, because he also targeted Emmanuel Sanders on a 40-yard pass down on the goal line and went for defensive pass interference, and they scored on the next play or 2 plays after that. It was after the turnover, and I think they got down to the 2 or 3 yard line, and then Kamara ran it in. Right. So what was different about week 1 than week 3? I mean, you have an elite wide receiver who is keeping defenses honest when not allowed, and they aren't able to play that incredibly soft shell using the last few weeks. Mm-hmm. So if you do the basic math there, it's not that difficult to understand why getting the ball downfield is much more difficult than it was previously. But what you have seen from week 1 to week 2, week 3 is, I thought Breeze was incredibly accurate in week 3. He didn't attempt passes downfield, but he did a lot in the 10 to 15 range. He made a couple nice throws to Emmanuel Sanders, one for a touchdown, one in the second half right before the Kamara play that no one remembers because what happened on the Kamara play. But, he had 2 rushes in his face, and he threw the ball out in front of Emmanuel Sanders, and it was a 18-yard gain in the first down, a really nice play. He hit Jared Cook on a nice little corner route. Either on the possession, I can't remember what possession it was. It was the play he got hurt on. It was in the third quarter.
Right.
So I think those are what you need to see. Those throws are important because once you get back to the offense you want to play, I think they are going to attack deep, and he needs to be hitting all of the throws that go along with those deep shots to be able to be effective.
Yeah, Jeff. Let's go ahead and backtrack a little bit. I mean, you mentioned Emmanuel Sanders, but I want to go ahead and I encourage everybody to check out the article that Jeff wrote on NOLA.com. But let's talk about the first play that you analyzed. Okay, this was the play that ended up being a sack, and it was, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Emmanuel Sanders went on a post route, and I think you wrote in your article that maybe he brought the defender too far down the field, and maybe Drew Brees was reluctant to throw that pass due to the trust. So do you think that some of the issues that are plaguing the New Orleans Saints right now and Drew Brees' unwillingness to throw the ball down the field has something to do with the trust factor right now?
I mean, I don't think there's any question that they're still developing that chemistry. I think Brees said that himself. He's on what day is it today? I lose track every week. It's Thursday. He spoke yesterday after practice, and they asked him, is that chemistry coming along? And he said, yeah, and there's opportunities we haven't hit, and we're going to hit them. And it's a week by week thing. Right. And I think that what you saw last week in terms of, that play you're talking about. So what I did was I looked at all the Drew Brees' drops in that game, and I looked at all the 7-step drops because those would be typically what you're referring to as a shot play. You take a longer drop, you let the routes develop downfield, and you hit a guy, 20, 30 yards on a post or a fade, or, maybe a slant and go is another route that Sanders takes downfield a lot. It's a long developing route because you have to fake the slant and go. And this first play, it's the second sack Drew Brees took in the game. So the first one is another shot play, but it's a little different. And that's the one where the defender kind of ran a stunt and the ball got stripped. Pete got back on it. And so this play you're talking about here, there's more pressure coming in, and Brees kind of has to decide, okay, am I going to wait this out and try to deliver the ball downfield and risk another fumble? Or, is he just going to pull it down and take a sack? Right. And the reason it got to that point is, and I don't think that you'll get anyone to admit this, but I think Sanders ran his route a bit too far downfield. So they started at the 38-yard line. Most routes that break downfield are going to want to break between the 12 and 15-yard mark. Right. It's one of those things that a lot of people don't realize. These routes aren't as, random as a lot of people seem to think. They're very formulaic. And the reason they have to be that way is because you need to be able to anticipate where they're going to be. And if you watch that play, you'll watch Brees take a 7-step drop off with a play action. He comes out of his drop. Sanders has already kind of got rerouted inside. I think that's what threw him off a little bit. And as he gets to the 50, which would be the 12-yard mark, Brees is out of his drop waiting. He's standing there just ready to throw the ball. And Sanders, ideally he would have broken between the 50 and the 47. Instead, he breaks somewhere around the 45 or the 44. Right. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but that extra half second is what you need to throw that ball in that situation. Yep. And it actually takes away more time because as you're standing there, you'll hear a lot of people say, "Oh, he needs to lead him. He needs to throw with anticipation." You can't anticipate what you like if you don't know where he's going to be.
Right. Exactly.
And that's when you're talking about chemistry, that's what you're talking about. It's understanding that he's going to come out of his break here. He's going to end up here. He's going to turn upfield here. Right. And if you don't know that yardage mark, you're probably going to throw an interception. Right. And that's what happened on that play. But later in the game, they came back and they hit that throw I was talking about earlier, which was a very good anticipation throw. So you can see it kind of happen in real time. And I counted 6 shot plays that they tried to run. Mm-hmm. They didn't hit any, but they did hit a 52-yard touchdown pass that never went more than a yard past the line of scrimmage. So
yeah. I mean, also let's talk about that play. Let's talk about the Alvin Kamara play. Now, Drew Brees mentioned that in his interview. He talked about that play was actually designed to go to Marquez Callaway. You look at the play, and you wonder to yourself if maybe Marquez Callaway was a third-year player versus being a rookie, would Drew Brees have thrown that pass to him? Because maybe it's just me, but it seemed like if he would have pump faked that ball, it would have caused the safety to kind of bite on it, and it would allow Marquez Callaway to throw the ball down the field. But instead, he checked it down to Alvin Kamara, and, the rest is history. One of the most exciting plays I've seen in a very long time, rooting for the Saints. But do you think it had a lot to do with maybe the fact that Marquez Callaway and what you just mentioned, not really knowing what the receiver was going to do? Why do you think that he decided to just check it down to Alvin Kamara in that play?
Well, that play's kind of interesting because you want to get a big play downfield, but Brees made objectively the right decision. And the right decision is more often than not, okay, I have Alvin Kamara. He's the best player on the field. How can I get him the ball? Right. And it's easy to say, oh, he checked it down. If you watch that play, that is not an easy pass that he made. There's 23 yards between the hash marks and the sidelines. He throws the ball from right inside the left hash mark to outside the numbers. That's a 12, 13-yard throw parallel to the line of scrimmage. Right. That's a pick six if you don't throw well.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Because you look at that linebacker that zeroed in on the cornerback, that zeroed in on him. He was right there. I mean, Alvin Kamara broke the tackle.
That's not a good throw. It's a touchdown for the Packers. Yeah. It's really easy to say, well, he didn't do any of the work. That's not a throw that a lot of NFL quarterbacks get to in their progression because they try to force it downfield where it's not there, or B, can make effectively. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about. But for the route. The route combination you're talking about is kind of it's very similar to what the Saints ran to Deontay Harris with Taysom Hill against the Bucs, which is you have Marquez Callaway in that situation coming out. He's in I want to say the strong side was right. So he'd be in the Z or no, he's the X on that play. So he's running the deep over, and Sanders is on the opposite side running the deep post. Right. And the play design is really, you're trying to get that deep safety to commit, and unless he commits to the over, that should be open because that you have Traquan Smith on the opposite side, but he stays in the block, and so ideally that should hold that corner just enough that he's trying to protect against kind of a backside run. But Alvin Kamara leaks to the other side, so he doesn't have to do that. Right. And so what you're looking at in this play, it's a personnel thing. Right. Marquez Callaway shouldn't be the guy running the deep over. That should be Sanders. That should be Traquan Smith. That should be Deontay Harris. But because you don't have Michael Thomas, you have to have Traquan Smith in to block because he's your best blocking wide receiver. And suddenly that DB no longer has to sit. Right. And if you watch that play, it wasn't about a pump fake. You need to hit Callaway early in that play to hit him because by the time he gets to the sideline, the throw is too long and that DB can get back there. The only way that works is if you hit him early. And if you watch it, you see Callaway coming over, you see the safety sit on top of the post, so that's gone. And then you see that DB kind of dropping right into that zone that you'd want to deliver the ball. Right. Now, I said this, this is, if you want to call it a miss and you want to say he could have squeezed the ball into Marquez Callaway, sure. But I don't want to see Drew Brees in that situation trying to squeeze the ball into Marquez Callaway. He's never had an NFL target. And that's where you have the personnel thing where it's like, yeah, would you like to have someone else running that route? Probably, but you're in a personnel jam. Yeah. And so he got the ball to Kamara, and you know what happened. And
exactly.
And I think it is also important to understand that like they are running these shot plays, and every single time they ran a shot play that didn't result in a sack, obviously the 4 times, they got really nice gains. They got a 13-yard pass to Jared Cook. They ran 4 others that I identified that weren't sacks. 13-yard pass to Jared Cook, 18-yard pass to Emmanuel Sanders for a first down that I talked about, a 19-yard pass to Traquan Smith on the 4th down play on the final drive, and then the 50-yard touchdown. So just the threat of going deep is even enough at times to create those opportunities underneath.
Yeah, I mean, okay, we look at Jared Cook. Like you said, he pulled his groin in the 3rd quarter of the game on that 18-yard catch. Probably going to have Adam Troutman in a situation like that. So I know that the play once again was designed to give longer yards than the 18-yard gain by Jared Cook. But do you think in a situation like that, and I heard you mention that in your article as well, do you think that the Saints might end up pulling the trigger on that particular play? I think that was designed for Emmanuel Sanders, if I'm not mistaken. And I also want you to elaborate on that Marquez Callaway play, the fact that he was down the field and there was a possibility that he could have got it. Do you think that there may be a play that the Saints probably keep in their back pocket to use later on down the line?
So well, we don't know if Jared Cook is going to play or not. That's.
I'm just saying, like, just out of pure speculation here. I mean, let's just say, for example, he didn't. I don't think he practiced yesterday, if I'm not mistaken.
No.
Okay, and I don't know about today, but let's just say, for example, he doesn't play, and Alan Troutman to me is the next pass catching tight end, and he's in that situation. Yeah. So, what do you see? Let's just say a game of experience between Drew Brees and Emmanuel Sanders. Does Drew Brees probably take that shot in that situation, and does he take the shot with that Marquez Callaway play as well? I guess that's what I'm saying, because it seems to me those are trust throws to me. Those are trust throws. Like we talked about that earlier about having the trust, knowing where the receiver is going to be. So do you think that they may revisit these 2 plays in particular, and maybe it will be a successful down the field throw to both receivers in that regard?
It's tough to say. I think that the Saints have simplified their playbook a lot without Michael Thomas, and if you lose Jared Cook for any period of time, which it's tough with a groin injury, with any soft tissue injury, it's really tough. And the Saints are notorious about not, giving out any information on injuries. Yeah, like Marcus Davenport might play, he might not. All we know is that his elbow hurts. Right. But he's missed the first 3 weeks as he was limited this last or yesterday. Well, we're going to find out this afternoon on a lot of those guys. Michael Thomas might be back, he might not be back, and that limits what you can game plan, what you can install early in the week, because you don't know who's going to be there at the end of the week. Right. So for a guy like Adam Troutman, he got 41 snaps in week 3. He had gotten 16 each of the first 2 weeks. And I think what you're going to see with him is they're going to keep giving him simple routes. I don't think you're going to see him run that banana type route from inline from the Y, but you're going to see a lot more of the, those inside stick routes that they ran one against the Raiders. They ran one they ran it a couple times again in the Packers game. Right. One of them went to him for, a nice 7-yard gain on first down. Right. And then they ran it again on that final play where Brees pumped to him and hit Traquan Smith on the dig. Right. So I think you are going to see route combinations that stack differently if it's Adam Troutman instead of Jared Cook, because he's not going to be your top option on a play where you have Sanders running a post and he's running that kind of corner underneath it. Your top option is going to be Sanders. Right. Even if you're looking to Troutman, you're going to probably be, trying to influence that safety so you can hit Sanders, or you're not running that route combination at all and you're taking advantage of Michael Thomas on the opposite side. Right. So it's tough to say, but I think that Adam Troutman, if Jared Cook misses time, Adam Troutman is going to be really important, and he's going to have to grow up real fast. Right. For a guy who's only played 3 games, had no preseason snaps.
Right. Yeah, I just think that Alan Troutman, I think he has a lot of potential. I think the Saints are kind of slowly trying to gradually bring him into the offense. And I think that he's probably going to be doing more damage towards the end of the season. Like once he really gets adjusted I do think that I do see Drew Brees looking his way a little bit more than he did like the first couple of games that he played. So that definitely is a plus. I want to talk now about a little bit about that final play, that the fumble by Taysom Hill. Now I know you looked at that play. Okay, we all know that Taysom Hill runs the RPO pretty well. I mean, but in this particular case, Jeff, did he make the right decision by keeping the football on that play? Besides, instead of giving the ball to Latavius Murray, in your opinion?
All right, so I'm going to answer your question, but I'm going to do it in an annoying way that doesn't answer it right away. So Taysom Hill is a really, really weird situation this season. He had 3, and he's looked incredibly rusty. He's had 8 quarterback snaps total. You could argue that he's misplayed more than half of them. He had 3 quarterback snaps against the Packers. The first one was his own read. He probably should have kept it. He handed it off. The second one was the playoff play, the Vikings playoff play where Deontay Harris, we talked about this last time I was on. Deontay Harris runs that little dino post, and this time it's Traquan Smith running that kind of over that shallow drive route, or the shallow, whatever you want to call it, crossing route. And he misplayed it. Traquan Smith was wide open. Like painfully open over the middle. And he just never came off Deontay Harris, who's supposed to be the second read on that play. You're supposed to work from right to left in that situation because you're trying worst case scenario, you look and he's covered and you influence that safety. And it looked weird this time because he never came off Deontay Harris. He just stared at him and the safety's like just sitting over the top waiting for Harris or Taysom to pull it down and run so he can drop on it. But, that's just a bad read. It's just a bad read. And then the zone read that you talked about, of course he should have handed it off. It's a weird play. It's a weird play because, and you got to give Taysom a little credit because it's a really difficult read in that situation because if you watch the replay, Josh Hill's kind of coming in to do a kick out and he crosses the vision of the guy, of the rusher, which the whole point is. Well, the whole point is for the quarterback to be able to see what he's doing, and the blocking kind of took that away. And then if you watch it where Taysom's handing the ball to Murray is kind of naturally in between him and the defender. So it's almost a case where you're just guessing because he can't actually see what he's doing. And that's a play design thing that probably wasn't optimal. And it almost feels like the decision was made for him to keep that ball before. It was more of a play action handoff than his own read handoff. He was keeping that the whole way. And he has to keep it in there a while to hold the fake. The first one, and it kind of feels like that way sometimes with his own read. It feels like he's like, okay, I handed it off the first time, I'm going to keep it this time. It's like that's kind of not the point. But he's looked rusty, and I think that when you really think about what Taysom Hill has to do at quarterback and what he has to do at the other positions, you talk about guys not having a preseason. There are players who, Drew Brees is 20 years into the NFL. He doesn't need the preseason snaps. He knows what he's doing. He can make these reads in his sleep. Right. Taysom Hill, that's the only time he gets to practice quarterback. And you can say, oh, he had training camp. Yeah, he had training camp. He had to split reps with Jameis Winston, who's also learning the offense, and he's not getting first team reps there either. So even by a standard backups perspective, he's getting fewer reps. And then on top of that, he plays 5 different positions. Yeah. He's got to learn those responsibilities. He's got to learn those installs. Yeah. And so is it a surprise that after not getting, he got last year in the preseason, he got 141 quarterback snaps. In the regular season in the playoffs, he got 41 total. Wow. So they, the metaphor is often like, okay, learning an offense is kind of like learning a language. Well, you can kind of build on that. I was like, okay, if you learned a language for a year and you felt like you were fluent in it, and then you just didn't do it, you didn't speak it, you didn't hear it, and then all of a sudden you're getting paid to translate professionally, and you haven't done it. You haven't got a chance to practice really in this live setting.
Right.
Are you going to get that translation right? Or are you going to miss a few words? And I think that's what you're seeing with Taysom Hill. He just doesn't have the reps, and those preseason reps are really important for him. And you hope that kind of he can kind of get this ironed out on the fly, especially that miss to Traquan. The zone read is tough. It's a split second thing. He can't miss his read. If you watch the Vikings play and you watch the one from Sunday, like back to back, the difference you'll see, they run a jumbo set. Kamara swings out away from where Taysom Hill's rolling out to give him space. And in that play, Michael Thomas is running the deep over, and Taysom starts to that side, and they crash down on MT, and then he goes back to Deontay Harris who's beaten Xavier Rhodes for the touchdown or for the long pass. This time, he skipped that first part. He locked straight on Deontay Harris and never even considered throwing that. And so this, instead of a read, instead of a triple read, really, which is, okay, the deep over, Deontay Harris, run. It was just Deontay Harris or run. and the Packers clearly didn't think he was going to throw to that over route, and they were right. And, the good thing about Taysom Hill is that even him completely botching that read, still got made an 8-yard gain on first down. Yeah. That's kind of that's what you got to keep in mind is, his baseline is a lot higher. Whereas if Drew Brees did that, that's a sack for an 8-yard loss, so that is why it's nice to have him in there. And he gets those looks. He gets those really, really inviting sets to attack because of who he is, because he can run. And this is a really long-winded answer to a short question, but it's fine. No, it's fine. Cause I wanted to I have a follow-up question about Taysom anyway. I got to put you on the spot here. I read an article and they were talking about the Taysom Hill experiment. Maybe it's time to shut down the Taysom Hill experiment. And they made this compelling argument about how Taysom Hill is taking away some of the snaps from some of these younger receivers like Adam Troutman, because normally he plays the tight end position or wide receiver that's young. Do you think that it's time for Taysom Hill to mostly focus on the aspect of being a quarterback more so than having him line up at tight end or receiver? Do you think they need to kind of slowly move him away from that role so he can, mostly focus on being a quarterback? Because, we don't know how long Drew Brees is going to play. A lot of people think he won't retire after this year, like myself. So, he'd also, you have to go out here and compete against Jameis possibly next season. So do you think that it's time for him to kind of gradually move away from that Swiss Army role? No. Because that's why he's, you can say they paid him to be the quarterback of the future. They didn't. They paid him to be a piece in the offense that you cannot defend. Right. The idea that there's guys sitting there just begging for snaps because I guess I'm not sure who you're dying to get out there on these heavy sets, like asking them to block, because that's what he's doing. It's the same reason Josh Hill is an important piece of this roster. Is he's willing to do things that don't get a lot of attention. He's going to stay into block. He's going to be that max protect guy. On Alvin Kamara's run against the Bucs, they shifted Ryan Ramczyk outside of Teron Armstead on the left side and had Josh Hill, Taysom Hill, and Traquan Smith seal the edge there. And so, those are the type of things that it's that's not a rep that you're desperate to get Marquez Callaway out there for, a guy like that. You're trying to do things that the defense can't prepare for, and he allows you to do that. Whenever he comes out onto the field, the defense has to account for they have no idea. They could line up at 5 different positions. Right. And the issue right now is he's not executing the most important position, which is quarterback, when he's in it. And so they need to do something in terms of getting him more practice reps, getting him more comfortable, so that when he's thrown into that role, he's not playing like his head's on fire, because that's what it's felt like the last couple games, especially week 3. And maybe the solution is the next few weeks they don't run those quarterback sets. And they find a way to get him more familiar. I thought the double pass was a really good way to do that.
I like that.
Where you're taking advantage of his quarterback skills, but you're not forcing him to line up under center.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't know. And it's tough because I also hate plays where Breeze is sitting at the bottom, just pretending he's going to run a route and everyone knows he's not.
Hey, do you ever think that one day possibly they can throw the ball to him? Like just
no,
because nobody.
Maybe 10 years ago, if you go back and like teleport Taysom Hill back when Drew Brees was not 40 years old, maybe they would consider it. No, not 41-year-old Drew Brees is not getting his hands on the ball unless it's given to him by the center. Maybe a flea flicker, maybe. But no, and I think that's, I wouldn't mind seeing more Wildcat. I wouldn't mind seeing more, a set where Alvin Kamara actually takes a snap from under center and he can actually throw it to Taysom Hill because you want to take advantage of his passing ability, but you don't want to put him into the box of being a quarterback because you're not, and who cares if he's the quarterback of the future? Like,
yeah, good point.
Who cares? It doesn't matter right now. What matters right now is not losing and going to 1-3.
Yeah.
And it's obviously people want to talk about Jameis Winston. They want to talk about Taysom Hill. None of that is a factor in week 4 of the 2020 season.
Yeah.
The Saints have been over leveraged on the salary cap for feels like decades at this point.
Right.
And they have to worry about winning this season. And Taysom Hill makes them better. Taysom Hill playing well makes them better. And they need to get back to that. They need to get back to Vikings, impact level Taysom Hill. And they just haven't had that so far.
Yeah. The whole Taysom Hill experiment has been really successful over the past couple of years. And I have to agree with you. He has been relatively rusty. And that is one play that stuck out in my mind. They even mentioned that on Sunday Night Football, how wide open. Like, it is crazy.
Even Warren Sapp tweeted about it.
Traquan was like right in his face, like literally like right there,
Brutal.
But, yeah,
I felt bad because I tweeted a picture. I tweeted a picture from the All-22.
Mm-hmm.
I think the caption was basically Taysom Hill decided his best option was to run on this play. And literally Traquan Smith is halfway across the field. He's well into his route. There's no one within 10 yards of him on either side. He could have thrown it to him underhanded.
Yeah.
And that's just, and the thing is, like, Taysom Hill is not a guy who's going to look at that on tape and be anything but just disgusted with himself. That's the thing to remember. Like, this is a guy who works. This is a guy who's willing to learn 5 different positions. And when he's not playing well, he's not okay with that. Like, I guarantee you, he's spent all week thinking like, okay, next time I get that read, I'm going to look over there. And I'm sure the coaches have drilled it into him.
Right.
And hopefully, and that's the thing. If he had gotten that read in the preseason and screwed it up, which I'm sure he would have, they would have run every single play that they intended to run in the regular season because there's only a handful. They would have just hammered those plays just to make sure he was on the reads that he was supposed to be and he was getting to the right player first and not locking onto Deontay Harris. If he does that in week 3 of the preseason and they sit him down in midweek and go over the film and say, Taysom, you need to at least check your first read before working back over here.
Right.
Maybe in week 3, he does that correctly and he hits Traquan Smith for a 40-yard touchdown or however long it would have been.
Right.
And now that had to happen in week 3 of the regular season. So maybe in week 6, he gets that read again and he does it right. And he does it correctly because he screwed it up in week 3.
Yeah. Luckily, look, week 3 is over. We can't take it back. The Saints lost the game. Right now they sit at 1-2. It's time to move forward to the Detroit Lions game. But one thing that the Saints are going to have to improve on is their defense. And one person that has been the bright spot of the defense over the past, years, throughout the years, have been Cam Jordan. And as of right now, Cam Jordan doesn't have a sack, Jeff. And that's something that is very rare. Something very rare that we see Cam Jordan at this stage of the season not have at least one sack. So looking at some of the offensive line play, what is the offensive line doing to make sure that Cam Jordan doesn't get to the quarterback? Or is it something that Cam Jordan normally used to do, but he's not doing right now?
It's tough to say. I think the matchups are a factor here. In week one, in week one, they actually got a lot of pressure. Tom Brady's just really good at getting rid of the ball, but they've affected him. They made him make bad passes, and he threw 2 interceptions. And I think on both of those interceptions, they got some good pressure with the front four. They were actually among the league leaders in pressure generated with just the front four in week one. In week two, you ran into Derek Carr and the Raiders, who, the Saints for years have been among the league leaders in like fewest sacks taken because they get the ball out fast. That's Breeze's thing. And Derek Carr, if you had to pick a team that does it, as well, or at least as often, it's the Raiders. They get the ball out fast and they eliminate the threat of the pass rush because they pepper a guy like Darren Waller with 16 targets. And they had no answer for him. Malcolm Jenkins just had a really rough start. He's a guy who needs to get going because he's going to get these really tough matchups. He's a guy who's being asked to guard Darren Waller. He's the guy who was being asked to guard Mercedes Lewis on that touchdown. It's not going to get better, Jeff. It's not going to get better because, you got Travis Kelce coming to town. You got George Kittle coming to town. Like, it's only going to get worse. So, but again, those offenses are a little different because Aaron Rodgers. So you have 2 quarterbacks in Derek Carr and then obviously Aaron Rodgers. So Derek Carr does it a little differently, but he's very good at avoiding it, negating pressure because you just don't have the time. You have to send blitzes, and if you blitz, then he can throw it to his hot receiver, and you're in trouble. And that's what happened with Darren Waller. With the Packers, the biggest issue, in my opinion, in that game, and I think the defense started well, is the crowd noise is such a big factor at the Superdome.
Yeah, we talked about that off air.
And Aaron Rodgers is the best. There's no one better in the NFL at using his snap count, and I think that he gets away with some sneaky theatrics there. Like, Chris Collinsworth was giggling about how he almost called a timeout on that play that Demario Davis jumped. You think that Aaron Rodgers is accidentally doing anything? This is a guy who is about as meticulous as humanly possible at the line of scrimmage. Yep. He knows what he's doing. He knows that if he, you can get called for a false start as a quarterback if you simulate the snap action with your hands. I know it's a podcast, but obviously there is a video component to this, so you can see me just waving my hands dramatically. Yeah. And he's, by doing what he did and kind of like feinting that he was going to do a timeout, that kind of, the refs aren't going to call it. Right. And it's brilliant. It's brilliant. But it's like there's no way that I'm believing that Aaron Rodgers was that out of the moment that in that part of the game when he was in the red zone, he knew exactly what he was doing. And that was just one example. But, they had at least 2 other kind of encroachment situations where he's running a hard count in a huge moment in the Superdome.
Yeah.
In the NFC Championship, Jared Goff, we talked about this too. Jared Goff literally had to tape over the ear holes in his helmet because he couldn't hear the radio 2 inches from him. Right. Like, that's a difference. It's not only like hyping up your players, it's actually affecting the other team. Yeah. And, there was several, that Janoris Jenkins pass interference, the Saints have been killed in penalty yardage. The reason that Aaron Rodgers was able to attack that throw the way he did was because he had free play.
Yep.
In the red zone. And then that free play turned into pass interference and a 1st and goal. And that's just something that would not happen the same way if people were in there. And, the defense has to be better. But I mentioned earlier, at least I told you, maybe we weren't recording, is you got to remember this is the Packers and Aaron Rodgers on a short week right after the Saints got pretty badly exposed against the Raiders. Yep. The Packers just cloned the Raiders' game of attack. They didn't have Devontae Adams, which I think worked to their benefit because when Marshawn Lattimore has a guy he can just latch onto and chase across the field, he's a better player. He's the type of guy who gets up for that matchup. Yep. Every time Mike Evans shows up, it's like you're just waiting for him to have a boxing match. Right. And, he's that type of guy. And I almost think that worked to the Packers' advantage because they don't have that kind of focal point for your defense to attack. And when you have 2 man corners that want to lock people down, that's a tough thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Cam Jordan specifically, he's had a slow start. You need to see him get going against the Lions. The Lions aren't going to work that quick passing game the same way the Packers do.
Yep.
They're not going to run Matt Stafford on any naked bootlegs from the 50-yard line. That
I don't know. They might.
They can. They can try. It won't go the way it did with the Packers. I'll tell you that much.
And why wouldn't you, Jeff? Why wouldn't you at this point? I mean, Hockenson and who else they have? Jesse James. I mean, they're two pretty decent tight ends right there. You know. So.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the tight ends. I'm talking about throwing a 50-yard bomb to Adam Lazard without stepping into it. Go out in your backyard, grab a football, go out in your backyard, and try to do this crazy reverse pivot move, and then throw as far as you can. You're gonna throw it like 20 yards to the right.
Yeah.
You're gonna be dizzy, and you're gonna break a window. Like that throw is impossible for anyone not named Aaron Rodgers and maybe Pat Mahomes. But even Pat Mahomes, like when he throws deep, he at least looks like he's trying.
Yeah. I don't know. Did you see that pass? Who did they play? They played the Chargers.
It was the Chargers, the Tyreek Hill play where he's on a full sprint to his right. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I
right,
agree.
but he at least winds up. That's the thing. Like when Rodgers and that's my point is when he's rolling out to his arm side. That's a much easier throw to make when the ball is ahead of you. Aaron Rodgers rolls out on his bootleg to the opposite way. So the only way to throw is to kind of turn your shoulders back. Mm-hmm. And if there's anyone near you, you don't have time to reset.
Yeah.
But he didn't even bother resetting. He literally just got his shoulders around and threw it just straight upper body, 50 yards on a dime. It's impossible. And he makes it look effortless. And if you're a defense and you're going up against that, you just have to hope Adam Lazard drops it. Yeah. There's really not much you can do to defend that type of play. And it came right after the fumble. It was, a quick change, momentum type play. Or was it? Yeah, it was. I can't remember. He threw it twice. They ran it twice. One of them came after Taysom Hill's fumble. And one of them was in the second quarter. I can't remember. I think it was early in the drive. But Aaron Rodgers is a spectacular quarterback, and the Saints have had really bad luck early in the season. Yeah. I expect the defense to rebound. I expect, especially in the secondary, I think, they're going to come into week 4 really motivated to show better in the secondary. And I think they will. I mean, Kenny Galladay is a tough matchup, but he's the type of guy that I think you're going to latch Marshawn Lattimore onto. And I wouldn't start him in fantasy if I had him, which I do.
Not a bad decision. Not a bad decision. I like Kenny Galladay. I think he's one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL. Like he's like a well-kept secret. If you're not like really like engulfed into the NFL, like you probably wouldn't know who he is. But I mean, this guy has a huge catch radius. He's about 6'4".
He's big.
Yes,
they call him. He has two of the best nicknames out there. One of them is Smooth Jazz because he's Kenny G. And the other one's Babytron because like Megatron. And he has a lot in common with a young Michael Thomas, which Michael Thomas is still young, but both of these guys kind of came in a little later on. Like Michael Thomas is older than Brandon Cooks, and most people don't realize that.
Wow.
Like Brandon Cooks is 26, Michael Thomas is 26, turning 27, but it's because he stayed 4 years at Ohio State or wherever, I can't remember. He came out of college late. He didn't come out in his first opportunity the way a guy like Cooks did, the way a lot of these, Calvin Ridley, for example. Yeah. So he's a few years older and he's a little more mature than the younger receivers that you might see in other situations.
Right.
So I think they have a lot in common. They're both very big. Kenny Galladay's a little quicker, but he's not quite as built as a guy like Thomas. So he's going to try to threaten you down the field more. And Matt Stafford loves to chuck it. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. It's going to be a fun matchup, I think.
Yeah, I mean, every time the Saints play the Lions, it's always an exciting game. Like it always seems like it goes down to the wire.
You remember the one from a few years back? That was the Cam Jordan Spider-Man tackle game.
Oh yeah. Okay. I mean, there's been like so many. I mean, so many like Saints Lion moments. Like we know about the wild card game a couple of years back. The game where Golden Tate broke off and scored a touchdown at the last minute. I mean, Lattimore, rookie season where he had his first interception. It was a pick six. So it's always exciting every time the Saints play the Lions. Like I was saying on my last podcast, I really enjoy watching the Lions play because I feel like in some ways they're kind of similar to the Saints. The only difference is the Saints have been prosperous over the years and the Lions haven't. But
the only difference is the Lions still have Adrian Peterson. No, he is there, right? Adrian Peterson is on the Lions.
yeah. They actually appointed him as the starting running back.
Did they?
Yeah. I was reading an article the other day, and they said that he's going to be the starting running back in this game. So
yeah, well, who'd they draft? Swift.
Yeah, DeAndre Swift out of Georgia. Yeah. Well, I think you might have to sit him down. I mean, after that Chicago Bears game, when I don't know. But but Jeff, thank you.
The Bears have just been embarrassing everybody, so it's not just the Lions.
I mean,
we can't not talk about the Falcons, right? Like we have to. At least, I mean, I don't think that I would be okay with myself if I didn't at least troll the Falcons a little bit.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Come on,
look,
on. What the hell is happening in Atlanta? That team is way too good. I grew up a Giants fan. And they can't even beat the 49ers.
Oh, my goodness.
We don't even have half their roster. They have a backup quarterback. They don't have their top two running backs. They don't have wide receivers. They don't have anybody. They don't have Nick Bosa. And they blew the doors off the Giants. But at least I know what to expect. I don't go into the fourth quarter with a 15-point lead thinking, oh, man, we're in trouble now.
You cannot make this stuff up. Like, this is like, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, it seems like I understand about Louisiana, and I know we don't like the Falcons, and I'm not a real big believer in voodoo, but I really believe that a voodoo priestess has put a spell on the Atlanta Falcons some way, somehow.
I just feel bad at this point. Like it's beyond like an adversarial thing. It's just like, geez, can't something good happen?
Well,
it's 2020. Everything sucks, but at least the Saints aren't the Falcons. I'm sorry.
But John, let me say this though. The only thing that bothers me about this whole entire situation, this is what scares me, Jeff. We have Jeff Ireland as the assistant general manager who has been knocking it out of the park for the last 3 to 4 years, and now coaches cannot come in between like assistant coaches getting opportunities to get interviews. That's the only thing that scares me. I am afraid that the Falcons are going to try to interview Jeff Ireland. They're going to take him away from us because there's no way. Like the Meestroff, whatever his name is over. It's over. Dan Quinn is over.
How long does Dan Quinn survive? I mean, is there any way he gets through the season? Like, it seems crazy that he got through the week.
Hell no. There's no way. Like I said, the only reason why I feel like they haven't fired him yet is because the season is early. Like I said, it's only a matter of
candidates.
Exactly. Everybody, it's hard to get people in the building. Everybody wearing masks, social distancing. You got to make sure that, you don't bring anybody in. Exactly. That's the only reason why he's still here, because they don't want to do the paperwork. And I'm serious. Wild, but I'm afraid that Jeff Ireland is going to get taken away. And they've been watching Jeff Ireland knock it out of the park every single year up close because they're in the same division. I know for a fact, I just have a strong feeling that they're going to end up hiring Jeff Ireland away from the New Orleans Saints. And because how good he is and how knowledgeable he is and how good he's been when it comes to scouting, I don't want to see that. I just don't want to see that.
Yeah. There was a column that was written in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. It's a really good paper in Atlanta, obviously. And the headline, I want to say, I'm paraphrasing, but the headline basically was like, somebody stop Dan Quinn before he tries to coach football again. This is a column. This is a major publication. That's how bad it is in Falcons land right now. So as frustrating as a 1-2 start is for the Saints, always remember it can get worse.
Oh yeah, it can't get any worse than the Falcons. Like honestly, I think that's the only thing that's really that we're looking at as Saints fans, we're like, well, at least we're not the Falcons. And I think everybody said, even Jets fans right now, Jeff, are saying, well, at least we're not the Falcons.
Right. I mean, Giants fans. It's like, okay, we're 0-3, but
tough luck. Yeah, I mean,
at least we're not those guys.
Yeah. I mean, that's bad luck, though, Jeff. I mean, Saquon Barkley, going down, tearing his ACL.
I don't want to talk about it, man. It bums me out. It bums me out. Yeah. And Sterling Shepard got turf toe, and Daniel Jones couldn't spot a backside blitz if it threw a rock at him. It's bad. It's bad in New York. The only saving grace is they have a rookie head coach, so he's not going to get fired immediately.
Well, at least Gettleman will be gone. Like that's like the biggest issue that y'all deal with. That's the biggest issue. So once y'all get rid of him,
you think a GM that like turned a roster into something that won 4 games, 5 games over 2 seasons? They've won fewer games than the Saints have lost in the last 2 years.
Ooh.
And he kept his job somehow.
I don't know.
And he keeps signing former Panthers players because he signed them there. Why not? I guess. I don't know.
Well, in my honest and humble opinion, I think the same thing going on with P.J. Williams and the Saints is what's going on with Gettleman. I don't know how they keep in my opinion, I don't know why they keep bringing him back. Dave Gettleman, he must have some footage or some pictures or something like that. Some very incriminating stuff going on in New York for him to keep his job after all those bad hires. I mean, I don't know.
But the good news is they'd definitely be hard copies because I don't think he knows how to use a computer. Why are we trolling Dave Gettleman right now? He's not going to listen to this podcast.
I don't know. Hey, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we end up talking about the Falcons, but hey, it's all NFL.
We made the natural transition from the Falcons to just bad.
Yeah, I mean, but once again, at least you're not the Falcons.
There you go. That should be like the tagline of this show at the end of every episode. And like we always say. At least
we're not the Falcons.
This is good. This is good stuff.
But Joe, thank you so much. This has been fun. It's always a good time every time you show up. But let everybody know how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at Jeff_Nowak. That's Nowak. That's the best plot because I don't do too much Instagram. I'm an old soul. I don't like to take pictures. I tweet a lot of videos, though, so if you're interested in that, I do a lot of all-22 stuff, so that's what I've been focusing on, and people seem to be appreciating it, so I'll keep doing that. If you want to see something, if there's a play from the game you want me to look at, hit me up. DMs are open. You can follow me on NOAA.com is where you can find any of my articles. I posted a story today that we talked about a lot, which is I went through all 6 of Drew Brees' shot plays from that game. Just Drew Brees. I didn't have the emotional depth to talk about Taysom Hill this week, but maybe next week. Maybe that's what I'll do next week. So yeah, you can check out any of my stuff there, and check us out on our YouTube page, which is New Orleans Saints on NOAA.com. Posting stuff pretty regularly, a lot of interviews, a lot of highlight packages, stuff like that, and then do some film breakdowns there too.
Yeah, absolutely. Y'all check him out, Jeff Nowak. I mean, breaking down all the games and, always breaking down those plays and giving us clarity about what's really going on inside of the huddle. But, Jeff, thank you so much for being a part of the State of the Saints podcast. And you can say it along with me, at least
we're not the
Falcons.
Man, thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you, man. Take care.